Well, thank you everybody for attending. We're going to go ahead and get started the session. We do have others that are still joining, but in the interest of time, we'd like to get started. Thank you all for attending our session on solutions to scale and manage your CMMC consulting and assessment activities. I'm Tom Leahy, and we'll do a brief introduction. I'm the SVP of Sales and Business Development with SureShield. I have with me Sanjay Kumar, our President and CEO, who will be conducting the presentation with me as well. We've been involved in the compliance and risk management and security field for about 25 years each. So, as you know, a very opportune time with the impending CMMC accreditation process getting ready to start. We'll talk a little bit about the current state and timelines. Many of you probably attended the town hall meeting yesterday that gave some more insight as to timing and plans. What for you as an RPO or an RP, the market opportunity, as we know, is for helping service and manage the organizations that will be seeking compliance will need, the roles that you play in that process, what potentially some of the servicing challenges can be. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how technology from SureShield can help to manage and grow your business. We've worked with many providers like yours over the years who have taken advantage of solutions like ours to actually be able to scale, take on more clients, and provide more services. And we're going to show you how we can help you with that, and how a component of ours we call PartnerShield can assist in that process. And as we know, it's a very opportune time as close to 300,000 DIBs are going to be looking for help. We'll provide a brief product demo. We'll answer questions for you at the end. And then there will be an offer for those who are interested to take advantage of a platform evaluation, give you a chance to kind of test drive it yourself. We will have one or two poll questions, one in the middle of the session, and then one at the end, again, just soliciting those who might be interested in an evaluation, and then conclude the session. So again, thank you all for attending today, and why don't we go ahead and get started. As we know, the current state and timelines, many of us may have been on that call yesterday. One of the indications in the question I asked was when they were planning on actually the official certification process to begin. They are waiting on some last sign-offs from the DoD, but for all intents and purposes, it's expected that by the end of this year, organizations that may be seeking certification are going to be able to start getting into that queue to go through that certification process. Now, those that are going to be pragmatic and practical are going to need a number of services and help in that to help them prepare for that, which is obviously what you as an RPO or an RP are there to help them with. It's been quite obvious over at least this year that a lot of these suppliers are still kind of unfamiliar with the process and are just beginning to seek services. So we can expect that there will be a very significant increase in, as this process becomes more defined and rolled out, that are going to need help getting themselves prepared for this. There's not, you can't expect that there will be organizations, if they don't feel they're ready, are going to want to go through that process without making sure they're ready, because they all need to be certified, as we know, by 2025. And really, it makes sense for these OSCs to be seeking help right now, because the sooner they can get in the queue and get that done, the more likely they are to not put any potential new contracts at risk. Even though that process has to be completed by 2025, you can assume that during that time frame there will be new agreements coming out, and you're going to be in a better position to secure those agreements if you have received your certification. And again, as we know, this affects the over 300,000 providers in the DIB, the Defense Industrial Base, which means that those 300,000 providers are really going to be seeking help to make sure that they're ready and for this process, that they are able to maintain that process and that they can assure certification. I noted one of the folks that presented yesterday, again indicated that while certification is going to have a component where you will get certified, really the process itself is continual because there's always going to be new things that are introduced into the environment. So having solutions and services in place that can make sure that they're continuously monitoring and making sure that they're meeting the requirements to meet this is going to be important. And as such, it's providing an estimation of a $15 billion market opportunity for those that will be helping these OSCs get prepared and ready for these processes, who are going to need ongoing support and services from organizations like yours to assist them. And they have estimated that the average spend is going to be somewhere close to $50,000. So a very, very huge opportunity. And what are the things that those organizations are seeking, are going to need help with? Obviously, they need help on the compliance assessment and services and reporting. They're going to need help in actually having people come in and conduct initial assessments for them and help them understand where they stand and help them with processes to improve their scores to make sure that they're going to meet the certification requirements. Underlying in that overall assessment processes are a number of things that need to be done to help guarantee that. So, in looking at the CMMC requirements, there's discussions about needing to have scanning and vulnerability management and remediation services in place. Being able to go into an organization and identify where they may have vulnerabilities in their environment, taking care of those, making sure they get remediated and fixed, and improving their overall security posture will be a critical component to meeting the certification requirements. They note that the processes for protecting CUI data, the critical data that's in that environment, are going to be important. So having folks who can come in and help them understand perhaps really where that data lies, sometimes they don't, and putting proper protection processes and methods in place to assure that that data is protected. And on a grander scale, as you know, we have the McCain Act that introduced the 889B oversight and monitoring, which applies to any company that is servicing the federal government. Well, de facto is being part of the Department of Defense. They fall into that category, so they're going to need to make sure that they also are complying with the 889B requirements around, making sure that they are not working with any banned entities, particularly as it relates to video surveillance and telecommunications. And many of you are familiar with that act and the requirements of that act. And then to expand upon that, it's not only within that OSC's environment, but helping them understand the ecosystem that they're working with and making sure that the vendors that they are managing, the vendors that are in theirs, are also providing the proper processes to help protect this information, and thus playing a role in the overall compliance activities. So briefly, I'm going to take a quick poll, and amongst the various types of services that you all may be looking to provide as an RPO or an RP, we were just curious as to what are some of the service offerings that you intend to be providing to your OSCs. And I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll right now, and we'll just keep it open it's a multiple choice. So if you're providing more than one particular type of service, you can go ahead and answer those questions. Great. I'm just going to give it about another 5 seconds, and we'll go ahead and launch this poll and show this to you. I think it's probably in line with what most of us would expect, but I'm going to end the poll and share that data with you and Sanjay. I'll go ahead and share those results. The majority of folks that are attending here are really almost 100% of them are going to help with the assessment and compliance activity services. I see a large percentage of you that are also going to be helping with scanning and vulnerability and remediation services, some that are helping on the COI area, and then a smaller percentage that are also providing 889B oversight and consulting services. So really a broad range of service offerings that are going to be provided by the folks here in attendance today. That's great. So let me go ahead and continue on. I'm going to stop the poll. And really, as we talked about, and you have all identified in here, the roles that you will be providing to help these OSCs include helping them prepare for the certification readiness process, conducting assessments. We saw a large percentage of you say that you're going to help do assessments for them so they can get a picture of where they are today and where they need to be in the future. And that includes identifying the compliance gaps and helping them fix those. I just point out the self-assessment versus third party because, as you all know, while they need to be prepared and get ready for this process as it gets rolled out, they still have the requirements for completing the other components, which are the NIST 800-171 requirements, and providing those self-assessments and scores to the DoD while this program is being rolled out. So we're going to show you a little bit about how you can help someone complete both of those types of activities without necessarily having to do 2 separate assessments. Obviously, those who are going to be involved in the security scanning and process will help identify and remediate vulnerabilities that may be seen in that area to help improve the overall security posture of the organizations that you're working with. There were folks, as we said, again, that will help identify and execute strategies to protect CUI data. As we know, it's important that anything that they are presented with or provided with is marked appropriately. And then really making sure they know where that data stands or where it is, and putting the proper processes around making sure that that data is that critical data is protected. Again, helping assure the overall compliance requirements of the CMMC as well. We saw that there's folks who will be providing 889B oversight. And as we said before, this is an ongoing consulting opportunity. It can be not a one-time thing, but an ongoing service to these organizations because things will change, new issues will be brought into the environment, and having good providers like you all to help these people prepare and continually prepare, again, opens up a huge opportunity for you all, but a very, very critical and necessary opportunity for the OSCs to make sure that they pass and get through this process. So before I turn it over to Sanjay to talk a little bit about how we may be able to help in that process, while it's a huge opportunity, obviously there's servicing and scaling challenges. With 300,000 providers, obviously you want to be able to generate and acquire as many of those as you can with the services you provide, but there can be limitations to that based upon tools that may be available to scale that. And so effectively being able to scale, will require having repeatable and efficient tools to conduct the required services. I did note that one of the presenters yesterday talked about some technology they developed internally to help do their assessments. So having some repeatable and efficient tools to do that will help you to be able to grow the service more. You want to have simplicity in how you can collaborate and distribute your work, whether you are doing that work on behalf of the OSC or whether you're doing work in collaboration with that OSC. And when we get into the software we provide, we're going to highlight how that can be used in any way that you see fit. Ideally, you want to have something that can help you manage all your clients in one area. You want to be able to easily turn on or implement services without having to add any significant additional labor expense in ads. And you'll want to have good reporting tools that can be used both within your own organization and for the clients that you serve, so they can see where they are and how they're improving and what they need to do to get to where they need to be ready for this process. So with that, I've talked about a little bit about what many of you have, I'm sure, are well aware of. I'm going to let Sanjay talk a little bit about how we can leverage technology, and then we will go into an overview of technology that may be able to assist you in that process. Sanjay?
Sure. Thank you, Tom. And welcome, everyone. And I think what I want to do is reiterate a couple of points and also provide a perspective to the solution that Tom is also going to be demoing for you. So just for the purposes of the audience today, which is basically RPOs, who essentially are what we call managed service providers within the industry, or RPs, we have prepared this particular presentation and demo focusing primarily on content or context that speaks to that. For example, when we are going to be highlighting the assessment piece, we're going to be highlighting the CMMC or the NIST 800-171 framework. But it is to be noted that if you are an MSP or an RPO that is also servicing other industries, all of the tools underneath the PartnerShield umbrella that we activate for you can be used to service other industry sectors as well. So for example, if you're servicing the healthcare industry, we can easily enable and configure the tool to have the HIPAA and the NIST CSF framework available for your clients in that as well. So focusing specifically on the defense industrial base that you will be servicing, we know that you have to do a number of activities, as Thomas pointed out. You have to do assessments. Now, there's a nuance to some of these assessments. Right now, it's the NIST 800-171, but CMMC is coming into play so that they can get certified on that. What we have done with both of those standards is enable them so that there's actually a crosswalk. So you conduct one assessment, but they harmonize across both. So you conduct one assessment and you will be able to score yourself against the other one. For any one of your OSCs. Now, it's also to be highlighted that even amongst your customer base, you might have certain customers conducting their own assessments, but you can oversee what they're doing or conduct those assessments on their behalf. The platform actually provides you with the ability to do that, as you will see during the demo. Another component of the solution suite that is enabled for you will allow you to conduct or enable vulnerability scanning integrated with the compliance audit framework. What does that mean? There's a unique differentiation to our vulnerability scanning tool. It's not just doing the vulnerability scanning, but the results of the scans are also harmonized together with the NIST and the CMMC control. So we are able to auto-populate with an evidence of compliance some of the components or some of the framework elements of CMMC practices with the results of the scanning. You can also leverage the software to identify CUI data in your OSC's environment. So the way that software works is that, again, it's this endpoint scanning tool that allows you to enable a particular OSC to determine where and all they might have any CUI data lying and the movement of such data and the protection safeguards that mitigate risk from it. The fourth software solution that will benefit you for the kind of services that you'll be providing to this particular client base is leveraging the 889B Act compliance piece. which requires you. I noticed from the poll results that a number of you are perhaps not doing that, but the two solutions that we have underneath that particular umbrella will easily allow you to leverage that services for a number of your client base. So even if you're not yet doing that, you can actually benefit from providing that added service to your client base using that particular module.
And Sanjay, I'll just point out, I also noted that some others talked about vendor management services. While
Yes.
we are not highlighting that in this presentation, we also have components that can allow you to do vendor oversight as well.
So what are the 4 solutions? And again, these are the 4 specific solutions that we think apply to you all as RPOs servicing the defense industrial base. However, as part of SureShield, we do have other modules as well that, as Tom pointed out, we have Vendor Shield, which we didn't actually put over here, but that can basically be leveraged to provide oversight of your vendors. Now, the 4 modules that specifically apply directly to a number of services that you all indicated are Comply Shield. It allows you to basically do automated assessments across a multitude of different frameworks. We are only going to be highlighting CMMC and NIST over here, but it could really be any number of frameworks that you have or want available. We have a very huge comprehensive list of a number of all of the different frameworks in the industry, from GDPR to HIPAA to CSF, name it, and we've got it in that particular tool. On the Security Shield side of things, there's a very sophisticated scanning agent that we basically have cloud enabled to allow you to do a number of all of these services remotely. You no longer need to go on-prem to basically do to do scanning and the like. These are all remotely deployable, and you can basically work with all of the results, the remediations, all of those are provided to you in very nice inferential reporting ways that allow you to act on things that really can help mitigate most of the risk for your client base. Hack Shield is the solution that helps you to identify and protect critical data at the level of the OSCs, and Integrity Shield is a module that we have configured specifically to do the 889B monitoring services or oversight services for if an OSC is doing business or is using equipment from a banned vendor. So key PartnerShield. So what we call PartnerShield is this cloud software as a service environment that we configure and enable for you as a RPO. When you contract with us or get into agreement with us, you specify to us which ones of the modules that you want and the number of licenses for any one of those modules. What we then activate for you, and as Tom indicated at the ending of this presentation today, you will be able to get in touch with us and actually test drive what this environment might actually look like for you. But we enable a self-service portal for you, completely automated, very, very easy to work with, that literally gives you a single point through which you can go and manage all of your clients in one interface for all of these solutions. So if you want to make your life and your business and scale what you do for your clients much, much better, and also provide your clients access to what you have access to and are working on their behalf and all of the reports, PartnerShield is really the environment for you. You can activate any new service for your customers at any point in time. And in the future, if you think that there are services or solutions that you have not activated before, you want to add them to your solution suite, we can also do that with relative ease. The solution comes with a built-in workflow or task management workflow system. In the future, we are planning on integrating that workflow management system with other solutions that are out there in the market that only focus on those, but we do have a completely automated workflow management system built in. You can get very deep insights, and as I think the proof will be in the pudding when Tom shows you the reports that are actually available, not just for you, but also for your customer base, for the OSCs to actually look at. And they provide very rich analytics to help identify what needs to be done. Everything is color coded. We believe in basically exception-based reporting. So all the dashboards are color coded. All the reports are color coded to highlight what might be at risk. Good. So at this point, I'll turn it back to Tom to go through a demonstration of PartnerShield. And what we have done in this particular demo is enable PartnerShield for a fictitious RPO called Acme RPO. And Tom is going to walk you through that in terms of how that RPO works to service its clients underneath it.
Thanks, Sanjay. And can you all hear me, or can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great. And a couple things, as he noted as well, with the PartnerShield platform, that we believe is a little bit more unique from us than other, I would call, single source providers, is that it's a multi-tenant environment, as you mentioned, meaning you have one central area where you can manage all of your clients through and all the activities of those clients without having to go different places to get that information. So as Sanjay mentioned, I'm going to sign in under this Acme RPO. And under Acme RPO, I have today 3 particular clients that I'm working with underneath me. Now, the dashboard that I'm first coming into is really more of a task management dashboard. So if I have a client that I have certain activities I have to do with or to respond to on them around a particular product or a module or a service that I'm going to provide, this gives me a little bit more of that task management view into this. But I wanted to give you, first of all, a view into what we might call some of the back-end pieces. So as Sanjay mentioned, of course, this can be co-branded and white labeled for your organization. It's very simple to set that up and to do that as well for the customers that you're servicing. But I just want to give you a sense of how simple and easy it is to manage the services that you're providing to customers and or to take on new customers. So I'm coming over here into this manage customers area. And as I mentioned, under the auspices of Acme RPO, I currently have 3 clients that I'm working with, and it's showing me the names of those customers and what are the different types of services or modules that have been activated for that particular customer. So let's say I've been talking to Sky Services, and they now have decided that they want to add another service offering of mine. They're interested in providing that solution that we call HackShield that can help them with CUI data protection. I simply go to the module subscription area, and you can see over here on the left-hand side, all of the different modules that have been activated for this particular client and for me as a client. And simply all I have to do is click a button and add that module and hit update, and it's going to be activated for you as Acme or me as Acme, and for me to distribute to my client, Sky Services in this case. It's that easy. And as he did mention, while we're just showing certain frameworks in ComplyShield, the ComplyShield comes with a lot of other frameworks if you are servicing different areas. But again, we've kind of highlighted this specifically for issues related to CMC right now. So that's the simplicity in adding a new service for an existing client. Now, to take it one step further, adding a new client, again, is just as easy. I basically just go here, say add a new customer. I give it that customer name, let's say, and I set up an administrator for that customer who's going to be at least my default administrator, noting that once they're in, they can also, and we can also assign different user responsibilities to that customer. But again, coming over and saying, okay, for this particular client, after having my discussions with them and in my proposal, well, they're going to add all of these different types of services to their offering, right? And once I have gone ahead and done that, and if I were to save and update this, I would now have that new Synapta Group client activated and all the services that we're providing to them activated for them as well. It's that simple and easy. And again, as we said, you can manage all of that in one environment. So anytime you want to go back and forth to look at different things that you're doing with those clients, it's really that simple. So with that, let's go back and take a look now that I have these clients in my environment. I may have different services, as we said, that I've activated for this client. So I want to go out and take a look at this Stanley Aeronautics. And to the left, once I have gone into them, I can see the apps or the applications that I've enabled for that particular client. And just a note, I have this view as the RPO, but my OSC can also have this view. It depends on how you're going to be delivering the services to them. So whether it's your collaboration with them, you conducting it yourself, you control all of that. But it makes it simple for you to go back and look at the different things that they may be working with. And so I'm first going to go into the ComplyShield Manager. And as a reminder, as Sanjay pointed out, ComplyShield Manager is the solution for helping conduct the various types of framework assessments that you may want to do. In this particular demonstration with Stanley Aeronautics, I'm not only doing assessments, but I've also enabled them with my scanning solution. And I'll come back to that in a minute, but it's helping me to go in and identify vulnerabilities and risks that may be apparent in that environment so that I can take and help them take remediation activities on them. So you get an initial dashboard view, right, that will show you kind of where you're standing with this particular client. In this case, these 240 controls that are listed here, we've enabled both the CMMC and the NIST 800-171 at the level 3 status for this client. As many of you know, there's 110 controls that overlap between those two frameworks, with CMMC adding an additional 20 to that. So the CMMC is 130, the NIST is 110, thus the 240 controls adding up to that number. And within here, it's giving me some information on, of all the controls, which of those are non-compliant, which of those are compliant, what still needs answers to them. As Sanjay also noted, we do provide within our solution a policy library that can be utilized that are mapped to those frameworks. Many of our customers, like you, may have their own policies already, so they can bring those in and associate those with those frameworks as well. And we'll show you a little bit of that within here as well. But this is basically telling me that of the 32 policies that I have, there's 12 that have non-compliant activities related towards a framework. So if I were to click into here, I'm going to get a macro view. You can see on my filter bar to the right, this has been enabled for both CMMC and NIST. If I wanted to just take a look at CMMC only data, then you can see how the view that I've had changes. If I wanted to just look at NIST, I can do that as well. And now I'm only getting the regulations and standards related to NIST. If I wanted to look at areas of, let's say, just non-implemented or non-compliant, I can do so. Or I want to look at a particular domain. So I'm going to go down and pick up this media protection domain and point out a couple of different things in here before we get into some of the questions. So first of all, getting to issues of workflow. Let's say I'm working with a client and I know that they have particular people either in my organization or in that client that are familiar with the media, this media area, and then there are going to be a specific set of people that will go ahead and do the review on these particular questions. All I have to do is click and identify those particular questions, say take more actions, and I can either assign an owner to do those, or I can even ask for responses from an outside entity. So if there's someone else that's collaborating with us and you want them to be involved in answering certain questions, that highlight some of the workflow
Yep.
capabilities.
Such as an RP, Tom.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to note in this particular, when I'm looking at the media relations here, there's two particular framework items that are related. So under the area of NIST, there's this question about marking media with necessary CUI markings, right? And the map to that is also down here, the very same question, a non-compliant question, keeping in mind, as you know, some of the responses on these particular assessments are slightly different. So these two, in terms of mapping, are the same. I just want to briefly point out, as part of the process, you can see under this area, it says Sync NIST and SP and CMMC. This is where we actually can show you the mapping of the different frameworks to the different control areas, right? So let's go back to that particular area in question. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to go back into that media section and just give you an idea of how people would go about answering particular questions. So we're going to go into media protection. And I'm going to go ahead and pick this NIST 800-171, or maybe I'll just do it at the CMMC level. I'm going to pick this particular question. And you can see they're related. These are crosswalked framework questions. I'm going to answer this and go ahead and now that I've done certain activities on this, where this stands has now changed, and I'm going to, for demo purposes, mark this as compliant. Okay. Now, we also provide some additional help in giving rationale and comments as to why that's compliant. I can add this, or I can add my own comments. You have the ability to go ahead and provide evidence that can help support your answer to that question. And then you also have areas in the implementation knowledge base that have guidance on how to review and answer this question, the policies and procedures that may be related to that particular citation. So I'm going to go ahead and answer this and save this as now a compliant question. If I were to go back here right now, we're going to see that question answered as compliant. And we're still going to see this marked media on the NIST section as a not implemented. If I were to come back now, this gets to how you can synchronize this all together and say, I want to sync these questions now. I've answered that question, so I'm going to now synchronize my response. So you can see this area, it says sync responses. I'm going to say, go ahead and update those responses. And we'll come back to that particular media question again. Sorry. I just need to go back to my home page for a second. Get back to my customer. And go to that app. If we were to come into this particular question related to media again, we're going to see that those questions have now both, without having to actually have gone in and answered that question, you can see now from a NIST framework, this has now been also marked as implemented after we synchronize those responses. So the long story, or the important story short here, is that you can actually conduct dual activities for your clients to get them prepared for CMMC while still making sure they're doing all the things they need to do for NIST. And the whole comply framework works in that particular process. So let me show you just within here in the comply area, some of the reports that you can generate out of this. So I'm going to pick up the PartnerShield. And Sanjay, did you have anything you wanted to add while I was doing this?
No.
Okay. So remember, as it relates to NIST, you have the DFARS reporting requirements. currently. So within our system, we will generate for you out of those answers a system security plan that can be updated, a plan of action and milestone report that is part of that process, and the report on NIST 171 assessment. It's the scoring methodology that's used. If I were to run the report on this, it's going to give me that output, and it's going to give me my aggregated score based upon where I stand today with my responses to those assessment questions. And keeping in mind that this is dynamic, so at any point in time, if I had answered something else that had now gone from, let's say, non-compliant to implemented or not implemented, that has a scoring impact. It will adjust and modify that score for me from that NIST perspective. It also, from a compliance related set of reports, I can go ahead and run my reports on compliance. And in this case, I'm going to run a report on compliance as it relates to CMMC. I could, filter this for other purposes, but I'm wanting to run it on a CMC level 3 compliance. And again, immediately output that information and data for me in a nice presentation process that can be one, either accessed by your OSCs. You can produce these yourself and bring them to them. All of our reports have the ability for you to go ahead and schedule them, for instance, if you want to have them scheduled and sent to a specific set of people on a specific day. If you want to output them into things like Word or into Excel or into PowerPoints, all of that exists in the reporting tools as well. So with ComplyShield, this is one of the modules that's enabled in, as we said, in that MSP portal environment. Sanjay, before I go into SecurityShield, is there any other thing you wanted to add related to this?
What I wanted to add specifically only on one point, Tom, was the fact that the ComplyShield application comes with templatized policies and procedures that we make available generically for any number of our MSPs or RPOs. However, you as a business, as an MSP or RPO, might have your own policy templates, and we provide you with the ability during the configuration of this module to actually upload those policies if you want to render them or make them available to your specific client base. So the capability exists within the platform to do that.
So let me just go into a couple of others because I see we're getting up on time, Sanjay, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions. Just briefly, a couple of the other modules to show you how they work within the SecurityShield Manager. As we mentioned, this is a solution that enables you to web enable a scanner that will go in and scan your environment and help you understand where vulnerabilities might be and how to fix those. So within this particular environment, it's showing me within Stanley Aeronautics, there's 27 hosts I have, there's 351 software assets, and there's 3.7K vulnerabilities identified in this environment. It's just different ways for me to go look at that information. And this is all done by launching a scanner that you can configure to determine what it is that you want it to look at, how frequently you want it to run, the timing of when you want it to run, all those types of things. So if I were just briefly to go into this vulnerability database quickly, it's going to pull up all of those that are in here. If I were to just pick the ones, for instance, that were high in nature, then I could see what those were, what the ID is of that, what the IP address is associated with that. And if I were to click in here, it's going to tell me what that vulnerability is, and more importantly, how I go about remediating and fixing it. And once I've done that, again, that all leads to various types of reports that you can generate out of the system. One that's a very popular one with ours are top remediation reports. So let's say I wanted to look at the top 20. I can very simply run that report again at any point in time, and it will show me a summary in terms of what are the top 20 that will help get rid of the majority of the vulnerabilities I have? So this can be used for purposes of resource planning, going after the things that are going to be of the greatest significance from a risk standpoint for your client, and really, again, helping make sure that they're meeting all the security posture that they need. It will even give you the timing and how much time it may take to do those particular remediations. So that is the Security Shield solution. I'm going to go back and just click on two other things quickly. As we mentioned, there's a solution called the Hack Shield Manager. And really what this does is it goes out and identifies critical information in your environment. And a lot of our RPOs and MSPs have used this as a tool to actually help in the initial planning process with their customers. It's an endpoint that they run, and then it will go out and identify critical data that may be existing in that environment and tell you specifically where that is. So in this case, you can see I'm just filtering this on anything related to CUI data. It will tell me where that data exists, what the devices are that it's sitting on. It will even tell me in what type of format it's sitting there. And more importantly, it allows you or allows them to then write some rules as to how that data can move, whether you want to put encryption protocols on it, whether you want to limit the ability for that data to move within an environment. Again, helping meet the important areas of the overall CMMC assessments, which relate to the protection of CUI data. And then just briefly, lastly, the 889B monitoring solution. What we've done is actually gone in and sourced all those banned providers. We put them in a database, we update that database on a regular basis, and then we run them against your OSC's vendor environment so that they can instantaneously see if they have anyone in that environment that might particularly be banned, so they can take appropriate actions on that. We've even enabled that further by allowing you to use that scanning utility we talked about with the Security Shield tool, and it can go out and identify the MAC addresses on all of the devices that you have and marry them to the MAC addresses that we have on the banned vendor database. So without you having to do any work, the system is actually automatically monitoring that for you and giving you and the ability to push that to your downstream vendors to do the same process, so that you or your folks or your OSCs know in their environments that they have a clean environment, not using those groups as well. So very comprehensive, but a really simple and easy solution to launch and a service to provide to your customers. So with that, I'm going to stop here. And Sanjay, why don't we just briefly go into the last two slides and before we get into questions?
Sure. So as Tom has actually highlighted, I mean, and it was quite fast, but really what he showed was through an environment called PartnerShield. You literally can gain access to solutions that can help you service the needs of your different OSCs. And we have just highlighted 4 of those solutions. We have overall quite a few, I think about 8 or 9, including the 889B monitoring services, right? So really what you have is automation at its best. And really these are very robust, scalable environments and solutions. What we have really created for you is the ability for you to take on more clients that will result in a higher revenue for you at a lower operating cost. So really with the same manpower that you have currently, today you might actually be using similar solutions, but they might actually be siloed solutions all spread out from different places. And for you to put together all the information across all of them requires a lot more effort. With this, it becomes a lot more easier. So bottom line, at least for the defense industrial base and for you as RPO, CMMC is here. It's a huge market opportunity for everyone. And for you as a group, for you to service. Successful RPOs will use technology literally to simplify the compliance processes that are being requested, mitigate risk for their OSCs, and maximize your own growth and take on more clients.
Great. And so let's go ahead and get into some questions. Just a couple questions that were asked earlier. This presentation and the recording of this will be made available to you all. As we noted at the end of the session, for those of you that are interested in trialing the SureShield PartnerShield platform, we're going to offer another quick poll to see, give you the opportunity to let us know if you would like to be contacted about trialing out the solution. And we'll make sure that we make note of that to allow you to do that as well. So with that, I'm going to keep the poll open, but we do have an area that allows for Q&A. So please go into your Q&A and ask any questions that you may have within here as well. And one of them was, can the solutions be white labeled? And the answer I think that we gave to you, Sam, was yes. It definitely, it can be white labeled for your particular organization. And then when you're even bringing your customers in, you can allow them to do labeling on theirs as well. That's correct, right, Sanjay?
Yes, so it can be white labeled at every level. It can be white labeled for you as the RPO MSP, and then you can white label it for your downstream customers.
So here's, let me, maybe this, Scott, looks like Scott got his answer to the CompliShield questions around utilization of policies. And I think, see, there was another that was around Microsoft 365 Active Directory that looks like was answered. There's a couple of others. Is SureShield product family FedRAMP moderate compliant? And Chandi, you answered that question, it looks like. I just want to make sure our other folks being able to see the answers to the questions that he's typing in. So as Chandi mentioned, we're in the process of getting authorized for FedRAMP right now. We are while we could say that maybe technically, because we're a solution provider, that may not be required, but we are going to go ahead and make sure that that happens with us. And we're still open for other questions. There's some questions, Sanjay, on how are the modules priced. Do you want me to answer that, or do you want to answer?
No, go ahead.
Sure, they do vary a little bit based upon what are being activated. And for all of our, just a note, for all of our MSP/RPOs, we provide a significant discount off of what we consider our suggested retail price that goes to you. So you can either use that suggested price and know that you're going to have a pretty significant margin already, or even mark that up or package these along with your services. But just in general, the CompliShield solution is typically based upon the frameworks that are being activated. We are packaging both the NIST 800-171 and the CMMC together as one framework. The security and vulnerability solution, Security Shield, is based upon the number of IPs that are being scanned. It doesn't matter how often you scan, it's just a yearly or a monthly subscription based upon the number of IPs. The same goes for the HackShield solution. It's really on the number of endpoints that are being looked at. And then for the 889B monitoring solution, it's really based upon the number of vendors that are being monitored. All can be provided in a monthly or a yearly subscription. And one part of our portal framework as well, and you can speak to that a little bit more, Sanjay, is they can manage all their subscriptions and all their costs related to that as well, right?
Yes, So we give you a complete subscription management tool. You don't necessarily even need to have activated licenses. If you run out of licenses, you can just activate a module and we will add that over to you at the end of any given month. But extremely easy. You can monitor costs. We're actually enhancing our PartnerShield admin portal. The next version of it will also include ways that you can actually determine upsell opportunities within your customer base in terms of the different number of modules, because all of these are integrated solution offerings.
And again, just maybe folks can respond in the chat box saying, yes, are you able to see the answer to questions that others are asking? Because some of those, if you can't, some of them may be relevant or to others that would like to know. So we have a question around where is all the data stored and how do you secure the information? And one of our participants answered those. Or is everybody able to see those? Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I think they
Great.
are. Tom.
Great, super. So we have a number of you that responded to the poll, and we appreciate that. I've got those responses. I'll go ahead. We're going to go ahead and get ready to end. The poll is still open for another minute or two. If you would like to be contacted about activating the platform, I see that there are quite a few of you that have responded yes. And so we will be in touch. And then you shall also be receiving information, follow-up with the presentation information, as well as the webinar. So should you change your mind, if you have answered no, or maybe later, we can always get back to you to do that as well. But for those of you who have answered yes, keep an eye out for a note from us to get you set up for a more kind of, I would say, detailed deep dive in getting that trial platform set up for you. Anything else you want to add before we finish, Sanjay?
No. I'm hoping that folks really got what the solution is all about and how they can facilitate the services that they provide at scale for their OSCs.
Great. Thank you again, and good luck to you all in this new, big opportunity. Obviously, this next year, this is just ramping up. Next year is going to see a really significant growth, and hopefully all of you are going to prosper. And most importantly, help those that you're providing make sure that they're protecting our data, our national data, and meeting these accreditation requirements and getting certified. Good luck to you all, and hope that we will be able to help support you in that process.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.